I was so excited to get to see this show after waiting years for it to make its way over to the West Coast because I was expecting this big, rollicking drama featuring these hit songs, fictionalized, set in the 70s, based on Fleetwood Mac, and I got a play instead that was a lot closer to Waiting for Godot if it was scored by Fleetwood Mac, but also co-starred bell-bottoms and a lot of cocaine. Hi, my name is Eric, and I cover theme parks, theaters, immersive events, and all kinds of things happening in Southern California, and today I want to talk to you about Stereophonic. Now, this is the first national tour of the hit Broadway play. It has finally made its way to the West Coast, to the Pantages Theater in Hollywood, and I have seen it, and I'm very excited to tell you what I thought about it today. Now, this is the 2023 play, not a musical. Off the bat, I'll say that. This is a play. This is the more increasingly popular play with music, not musical, not play with music, meets there somewhere in between. This is the 2023 play with music that took Broadway by storm last year when it became the most nominated play of all time, winning 5 awards and basically cementing itself as a brand new American classic. This play is written by David Ajmi and is featuring original new songs written by Will Butler, the former band member of the band Arcade Fire. Now, a lot of people may mistakenly think that Stereophonic is an autobiographical play about the band Fleetwood Mac. It is not those things. Now, while it does very heavily take inspiration from Fleetwood Mac, particularly the recording of the Rumors album, probably what most people would regard as their opus and also regarded as one of the best albums of the 70s, if not one of the best folk rock albums of all time, this play is not that. What it is a very meditative, very detailed, very long examination of a fictional band that is very similar to Fleetwood Mac, and it tells the story of the year-long process it takes for them to record an album and all of the ups and downs and love and fights and frustrations and breakthroughs and breakdowns that happen to these people as they are trying to get this album done. Like I said, after this play's 2023 off-Broadway debut, it went to Broadway in 2024, where it was nominated. Most nominated play, won 5 of those awards, including Best Play, Best Direction, Best Sound Design, Best Scenic Design, and Best Featured Actor in a Play. So, obviously, the hype for this was high. I remember when this came to the Tonys, this was a show that was really kind of the star, and you don't often see plays being the talk of the town during Tony season. It usually goes to a musical, whether it be a revival or a brand new work. Very rarely is the play the thing. But as we all know, according to William Shakespeare, the play is the thing, at least in this case. Because this play, when it debuted, was critically praised for its very thorough examination. This play on Broadway had about a 3.5-hour length, which is very long for a play, and only 1 intermission. So hopefully people were peeing. I know that I was doing that before and in the middle of this show. But this is a play that really does play with the way that time and silence and patience can sometimes be an excruciating thing to go through, especially if you're spending it with people who may not just be artistic collaborators, but also lovers and also friends and also the people who drive you more insane than any other people in the world. So Stereophonic takes place over the course of 1 year, from 1976 to 1977, as a fictional unnamed band is recording their next album in a recording studio in Sausalito, California. Now, the fictional band in Stereophonic features 5 members, 3 of them Brits, 2 of them Americans, 2 pairs of lovers, and 1 very sad little man in a blanket. The show also has 2 additional characters, the 2 sound engineers who are helping this band get this album done. And what is so interesting about Stereophonic is that a lot of plays about creating art or making music are often focused in on the actual creation of the art, the writing of it, the inspiration, the lyrical drive, the passion behind it. Stereophonic is a play that is a lot more about the technical pain behind actually getting something done. By the beginning of the show, all of the songs on this album have already been written. This is the part when they're just in the studio trying to get it to sound exactly how they want it to sound before it's sent to press and sent out all over the world. And it's such a cool area of creativity to focus in on. There's never a moment where somebody says some brilliant philosophical line in a throwaway piece of dialogue and an actor goes, "Oh, what did you say? Say that again." And then they pull out a notebook and start writing it down and suddenly they have a song. This show is a lot more about the part of the creative process where you are just banging your head against the wall because something about the bass in this one segment of this song sounds a little too bassy, or maybe this snare drum is a little too quiet, or maybe the vocals don't sound as clean as they could be. And this play, like I said, is very long, and there are moments where the characters on stage are just starting something over and over again, or repeating something over again, or saying something doesn't sound right to them but can't exactly articulate what it is. And I can relate to that feeling a lot, especially when you're making YouTube videos and you don't always know how you're gonna end a sentence before you even start talking. And these are all aspects of the creative process that I did not know were going to be the main focus of Stereophonic when I sat down in my seat at the Pantages Theater, having just emptied my bladder, expecting something that was going to be loud and raucous and crazy, and I didn't get that on this tour, and that is actually not a bad thing. I think a lot of people are going into Stereophonic thinking it's going to be back-to-back bangers, especially if you're a pop rock fan. I know that I personally love this softer style of 70s rock. I was excited to hear it done. And Stereophonic really holds back its best musical moments. And that's okay, because I wouldn't say that the music is the star of Stereophonic as much as the silence is. Because the direction by Daniel Auken really just makes you wallow in the silence and really delays the gratification that is what is being sought so desperately by the characters in this show. Let me get into more specifically what actually is going on in Stereophonic. So like I said, it's about a fictional band, 5 members, 2 engineers. And I wouldn't say that there's any main character in this show. If I had to pick a character who was maybe the main point of view, that would be the character of Grover, who is one of the main engineers, played by Jack Barrett in the show, doing his professional debut. And he is, I would say, the glue that holds this band and this show together. He is the new engineer who has been hired by this band to mix and master, but not produce, this album. This character of Grover is a little in over his head. We find out pretty early that he has lied about his past credits so that he could work on this album. This band is made up of 5 members, the first of them being Diana. She is one of the Americans, who was played by Claire Dijon, and she is the lead vocalist as well as one of the co-writers of the songs in this group. You've got Charlie, who is played by Stephen Lee Johnson. He's the other American. He's the partner of Diana. He's another co-writer. He's the guitarist. He is, I guess you could say, the front man, but mostly he's just the most egomaniacal, sociopathic one of the group, so he's just kind of fallen into that role. He's got issues, control issues, substance issues, a lot of issues that you find out in this show. And then you've got the 3 Brits. Holly, who was played by Emily Kotachu. She is the other vocalist as well as the keyboardist, and her partner Reg, who is played by Christopher Mawad, who is the bassist. And finally, rounding it out, you've got Simon. He's the Ringo, played by Denver Milord, and he's the drummer. And I forgot to mention, there's a 7th character in the show. That would be Charlie, who's played by Stephen Lee Johnson. He is the assistant to Grover, the engineer, and is kind of the main observer, kind of. He's a little bit of the guy who's just kind of off to the side helping, and is, to very comedic effect, kind of the most forgotten person in this cast. But in a good way. I'll get to why he's a good character. So that's our cast. 5 band members, 2 engineers, lock them in a recording studio in Sausalito and hit play. And I would say this show has a very documentary-like approach. Scenes often kind of start in the middle of conversations. There'll often be multiple conversations happening on different places on the stage at once. It goes for this very realistic approach that I do think that this cast handles so incredibly well, because you feel like you're watching a documentary about the Beatles or Fleetwood Mac or any other rock band from the 70s that, while their art may have been highly regarded and critically acclaimed and regarded as masterpieces, oftentimes these things behind the scenes were a lot messier, were a lot angrier, and had a lot of drugs going on. And that is very clear in Stereophonic. These people, while they have found musical success already by the time this play is start, they are sort of an engine that is starting to putter out. Tours and singles and press and all of these things that come alongside the fame. Well, we don't see any of that success happening outside of the walls of this set. We are seeing the moments where these people sort of are being their realist self, away from the paparazzi and away from the public perception that people have of these rock stars. I've heard from people who've seen the show that they struggle to immerse themselves in it because these people are always interrupting each other. They're trying to record songs and then they stop 10 seconds in and you'll hear the same 10 songs. You'll hear the same 10 seconds of a song we played over and over again before someone interrupts and says, no, fix this, or I don't like this. And I love that. I'm a big fan of the Waiting for Godot-esque style of holding back and not giving you the pleasure of hearing these songs all the way through. It really is until probably not even the first hour of the show that the band actually gets in the booth, plays a song all the way through, and then we get to like actually finally understand what is impressive and why these people may have found success, because we're not seeing the success happen. We're seeing all of the pain that leads into that success. Particularly this moment that happens near the end of the first half of this show. They're recording a song, I would say probably the most popular song that's come out of this play. That would be Masquerade. Grover, the engineer, keeps stopping Simon, the drummer, every 20 seconds to say, hey, I don't like the tempo of this song. I want you to do a click track. Simon says, I don't need a click track. Okay. They play the song again. Grover stops it again, says, Simon, I think you need a click track. The tempo's off. Simon says, I absolutely don't need a click track. And there's this back and forth that begins happening. And it's so, it's one of those things where it becomes annoying. And then this bit of stopping and starting over and hearing the same part of the song over and over again, it eventually becomes comedic because you just kind of get so frustrated. You want to pull your hair out in the same way that these people are wanting to pull their hair out. Eventually, Grover says, Simon, I'm just putting on the click track. You're just going to want to have to deal with it. And then there's this silence. And Simon looks at Grover. And the other band members are looking at Grover. And some people are looking out in the audience. And I'm looking at everybody all at once. And nothing is said for probably like 30 seconds. Simon just sits down in the chair and goes, okay. And then they play the song again with the click track. And it sounds fucking awesome. The original songs written for this show are so brilliant and buttery and smooth and tasty, and you just want to like lay on it like a giant bed made of butter and sink into it. The Tony Award-winning sound design by Ryan Rumeri, it just envelops this entire theater in just a wave of pleasure, and you want to get on your feet and you want to dance, and you also are like so locked in and seeing this like beautiful musical flow happening when all of these people in this band are finally coming together and creating something awesome together. There's another moment earlier on in the front half of the show where Charlie, who is the lead guitarist and the frontman of this band, it's 3 a.m. and they all want to go home. And Charlie, right before everyone goes, says, wait, I want to try something that we haven't tried yet. He gets Diana, his girlfriend, and the songwriter to take this song that they've been playing at a pretty fast tempo and says, let's just slow it down a bit. played on the piano first, and then she begins playing this piano with these beautiful lyrics. That's the song, I believe that's East of Eden. And Charlie then starts pointing at the other keyboards to come in, and then he slowly brings in the bass, and then he slowly brings in the drum, and then he brings in his guitar, and then he can see Grover, who's at the soundboard, starting to play with the knobs and bring all of this stuff together, and it's this beautiful moment of harmony, and really the first moment in the show where we actually feel like there's some kind of release, and you start to understand why these people who've been at each other's throats the whole time do still, I wouldn't say love each other, because there's a love, yes, but a lot of other pain and anger and frustration, but you start to see what it is that brings these people together as artists and what makes them all stay together and continue to work together when they finally get these moments of artistic cohesion. And moments like that in the show are so fun to watch and so exciting to watch and so thrilling to watch, not just because of the incredible talent of this cast and the brilliance of the writing, but also because of the way that it is staged on this set. And I want to talk about the set direction by David Zinn. David Zinn is one of my favorite set designers. He created the sets for my most beloved SpongeBob musical. He's also done the set design for Fun Home and for Amelie and for Jaja's African Hair Braiding and for Kimberly Akimbo. And while shows like SpongeBob have this big, huge, fun, crazy maximalist style to them, the design for something like Stereophonic is a lot smaller and a lot more set in this realistic space. This is some of the most 70s looking set design I've ever seen for a show. And the set is so brilliant, not just in its verticality, but it also in its thrust. In the foreground of this set, you have this big console that has all of these knobs and levels and all of these readers and all of these things that are constantly being touched and moved and played with by Grover, who's the engineer. You also have up about 4 feet, and in this window, this bright white-looking recording sound booth that is actually windowed off on the set. The actors will sort of walk off stage through these doors and then come back in and then be in this window, and there's this separation, but you can still see it very clearly, and it's lit so excellently by Jian Chang, because you have sort of this brown, darker, wooden, earthy style that's in the engineering side of the booth, and then you have this bright, stark, white, very almost antiseptic-looking recording booth with all of the instruments and the mics and the mic stands and the headphones. And there was this thing that was very popular in the 70s, rooms that would have these kind of like pits that would go down into the ground. I wish that this was still a thing, because I like these sort of like, imagine like a big jacuzzi, a big empty jacuzzi hollowed out in the center of a room. So you'll have these actors who are coming down these like very big chunky steps that are on both left and right sides of the stage. And then they'll come down and then they'll flop onto this beanbag chair or this like pile of Middle Eastern looking pillows. And they'll pull out a joint or they'll get out that big bag of Coke, and it just feels like so in that era of the 70s of things being very laid back, this very post-hippie, yuppie era of music. You've got the pleather kind of upholstery on these rolling desk chairs that are in front of the mixing console. You've got the wood paneling that goes down at this diagonal angle on the walls. You've got chunky metal toolboxes and these brown wooden crates, lamps that have this like big, like beige looking round fixtures around the light bulbs. And it's the most that I've ever just like wanted to like go up on a set and like look around. Like, I wish the set for Stereophonic was an escape room. I just want to go up there and I want to open up all the drawers and I want to flip through the records that are in the box. Then I want to flip through the records in the boxes, and I want to go behind the door, and I want to go into the booth, and I want to see what it looks like in there. I just want to touch all the things. It's so tactile. And it's a shame that these characters are having such a terrible time in this play, because if I was hanging out in this room, I would just be there, my joint in my little sugar powder, just lounging out and having a good time and listening to the Eagles or Pink Floyd. However, the scale of this set being so realistic does mean that it does look a little small, especially on a stage and inside of a theater that is as massive at the Pantages. I was super lucky. Our friend Danielle, who invited me and my partner Jerry to come see the show, got us really close seats, and that meant that I could make out the great detail of this set. However, I acknowledge that the proximity that I had to the stage is not the same proximity that most people who were sitting further back than me could see. This has that, this tour does this thing that a lot of tours do where if they can't always fill the entire space of the stage, they'll have a big black curtain that hangs about halfway down and then two big black wings that come in. So even if the proscenium is this big, the set, the actual playing space that we're in this show is actually kind of like just this much. And again, and that's not like a detraction from the incredible design work that's in this show. It just means that this is a play, because of its realism and its intimacy, isn't always going to fill the space that it's being played in. I said to my partner that I cannot wait to see non-replica productions of Stereophonic that take place in smaller houses. I would absolutely love to see this show done in a thrust staging where there can be greater proximity to what's happening on stage, because this play does play so much with realism and silence and close face-to-face interactions and muted moments and really loud moments. I think that these big, huge touring houses that this tour of Stereophonic is going to are not always going to do the show the most favors that can be done for it, just because of the scale of it all. Something else I should really mention about this tour of Stereophonic is that it is, as quoted by playwright David Ajmi in the playbill, a radio edit of Stereophonic. When this show premiered on Broadway, it was, I believe, around 3.5 hours long, which is very long. This touring version of the show is only 3 hours long. There's been about 30 minutes of content that has been taken out of the script. And I was not lucky enough to see this show on Broadway, so I can't exactly say what is not in this version. However, watching the show, I do feel like there are a few moments where there were emotional beats that were either gotten to too quickly or not entirely followed all the way through. There are times when there'll be these beautifully excellent philosophical moments, these musings on art and life and breakups. And just as soon as it seems like there's this catharsis coming in these emotional beats, it'll be interrupted by an actor suddenly coming in and changing the subject and talking about something else. Particularly near the end of the show, there is this scene with the character Reg, who's the bassist, who we have seen over the course of the show go from being this drug addict and this drunk, and then over the course of this year starts to clean his act up a little bit. He starts dressing a little nicer. He's put down the bottle a little bit, not entirely, but a lot, but more. He's drinking less than he was, and he's talking with Grover, the engineer, about his outlook on life and how life can be really ugly, but the greatest sin of life is to believe that it's all ugly and it's not worth living, that even in the pain, there's still beauty that you can find just in existing on this planet. And I love the scene, but I don't think that scene necessarily ends with the I don't think it rings the bell of I can't finish the sentence because it doesn't feel like the play itself finishes the sentence on where it's going with this idea, because it suddenly gets interrupted by this band meeting that needs to happen and talking about Columbia Records and what's going to happen next and what songs are going to go on the album. And I feel like there's times when I just wish that if the show was being portrayed with its full length and its full written intent, that maybe there are moments like that wouldn't feel like incomplete thoughts. And again, this is already a very long show, and I understand that when it comes to touring, you know, these touring houses are going to want more concise works so they can take it on tour, because it's hard to do a show on the road just for the actors. It's hard for the audience, especially audiences that are unlike New York. LA audiences are a lot less patient. And people have a lot of traffic to sit in to get home after the show. So I understand wanting to clip things along. But personally, I would have watched 5.5 hours at least of this show, because I was enjoying the silence and the pressure and the patience and the frustration and the release and the catch and the throwing back and the angering and being mad at each other and just all this familial drama inside of this band. I wanted more of it, and I was bummed, and I'm sad I didn't get that, having been curious and excited to see this show from its off-Broadway debut to its Broadway debut to its West End debut. It's finally here, and I still feel like I got a meal, big holiday meal, because it's Christmas, but I didn't get all of the sides down, or all of the dessert, or maybe I missed a little bit of the appetizer. Little bits of this meal were missing on my plate that was already very full, but I can see where things were missing. So important to know that if you're seeing the touring version of the show, it's not exactly the same thing that was on Broadway, despite the incredible talent and skill on display. These actors, who I didn't even mention, are playing all of their instruments. This is an incredibly impressive cast that they've assembled, because not only is the accent work great, not only is the acting work great, you also are hearing real guitars, you are hearing real drums, pianos, vocals. Whether or not it's all actually being mixed by the actors on stage, or whether or not the actual sound booth is doing that, I don't know. If it is being controlled by the sound booth, the actors are doing an incredible job of making it look real when they're twisting these knobs and touching all these things. So anyway, I'm gonna try to wrap this up, because I don't want this review to be as long as the show. But I want to go off with who I think this show is for. This show has gotten a kind of mixed review in Los Angeles. I do think that while the critics are loving this show, I do think there's a lot of audiences who are getting impatient with the length of this. There are people who are expecting this to feature more music than it actually features. There are people who I think are just straight up thinking that this is like a Fleetwood Mac biographical musical, which Stereophonic is not. So if you like plays that have really complex and fleshed out musings on art, and wanting to live in art and be inside of the art and the joy and the pain that comes with living inside of art, then I think this show is for you. If you want a big spectacle, you're not going to get that here. If you want to hear some really good singers sing Go Your Own Way or Dreams, you're not going to get that. If you want a show that encapsulates this snapshot of this period in the 70s of folk rock wave, you're going to get that, but maybe just not as loudly or explicitly as maybe you're expecting. So, Stereophonic is playing now through January 2nd at the Hollywood Pantages Theater. I do give this a big recommend. If I had to give it a rating, I'd give it 4 stars. And maybe that's just my expectation of the show was so high that I thought it was going to like change my life. It was going to be so good. I was really pleasantly impressed by it. I just think that maybe I was not as swept off of my feet as much as I was grounded and locked in with it. So 4 stars out of 5. So if you've seen Stereophonic either on Broadway or the West End or on this touring version, or if you're planning to see it at one of its later touring stops, let me know in the comments what you thought. I don't think I'm going to do another theater review before the end of 2025, but I am planning to make a best of 2025 video soon, hopefully with my partner Jerry. And I've also got a couple other videos in the can that I haven't posted yet because they're not being done edited. But here's to a year. 2025's been a year. And 2026 will also be a year. And hopefully I'll get to see more theater and talk to you, hear about it on YouTube. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.